What's up, everybody? So in this problem, we're going to be talking about chair flips. So first thing that I want to mention, in a chair flip, we're not flipping the molecule over like a pancake. We are not taking it and flipping it over. And if you're like, well, then why do they call it a chair flip? I don't know. It's not my problem, not your problem, but it is not flipping it over like a pancake. Now, after we do a chair flip, could you flip it over later just to throw you off? Maybe. You might see that on the test. But initially, the chair flip itself, all we're doing is we're just kind of bending bonds. So the idea is in a cycloalkane, in really any alkane, remember we have sigma bonds. And sigma bonds, sure, sigma bonds can rotate, unlike pi bonds, right? But sigma bonds in a ring, they're restricted in the amount that they can rotate because they're confined by the ring. You can't just rotate fully 360 degrees. So the best that we can do in a ring is this sort of chair conversion or chair flip, as we call it. So in this chair flip, I'm going to show you what we're doing in just a second. How do you show a proper chair flip? Because you're going to see, okay, make sure that you do a proper chair flip. In a proper chair flip, what we're doing is we are taking all of the axial groups and they're becoming equatorial. All equatorial groups become axial. That is how we draw a proper chair flip. Visually, we're also going to see the lines of the chair move, but we'll see that right here as we do the problem. So let's draw both chair conformations for the molecule shown below. All right, so first I'm going to go ahead and draw my normal chair on the left. So I'm going to stick with my normal standard chair conformation. So I've got two parallel lines kind of sloping towards the right, top left towards the middle, up to the top right. I'll move my head out of the way so you can see what I'm writing there. Then bottom right towards the middle, down to the bottom left. All right, remember, when you're going from a line angle to a chair, it doesn't really matter where you start as number one. Just be consistent the entire problem. Unless you are given like a pre-drawn template, you can start wherever you want. So I'm going to start with the methyl as number one, and I'm going to go around 2, 3 clockwise direction, and that means the isopropyl will be number 3. On my chair, pick something to be 1. Most people pick this top right to be 1, so I would just pick that and move on. It's technically not wrong if you do something else, but just keep it simple. Pick the top right. But what is wrong is if you go clockwise in your ring up here and you go counterclockwise in your chair, that's going to mess you up. That's going to give you a wrong structure. It's going to give you a different isomer of the molecule, but don't do it. So if you're going to go clockwise here, go clockwise here. Great. From this chair or from this cyclohexane up here, if something is on a wedge, that means it is up. If something is on a dash, that means it is down. That is all that we know from the cyclohexane itself. We don't know axial equatorial from this. We have to put it onto a chair before we have that information. At carbon number 1, I want the methyl pointing up. Okay, always start with axial. Always axial first, at least visually. So at that position of the ring, at that position of the chair, remember, the little point of the triangle, that tells me where the axial will be. So axials are always straight up or straight down. So whether it's up or down is determined by the point of the ring. So it's up, which means the axial would be up. Do you want up for the methyl? You do. So I'm going to go up axial for my methyl. Carbon 2, carbon 3. Okay, I want a down isopropyl. So again, at least visually, start with axial and say, okay, based on the point of the chair, you would say my axial would be going up because the point, the little arrow of the chair tells you axial. So axial would be going up. Do you want up for isopropyl? No, you want down. So if axial is up at that position, that means equatorial would be down. So the down is slightly down and equatorial. So I'm going to put my isopropyl group on that slightly down equatorial position. That is the first chair. Now, when we do a chair flip, and if you haven't drawn chairs before, maybe that was a little bit fast for you, go back and review chairs, but we've got to kind of move on from there. When we do a chair flip, let me show you rather what I have here for my chair. So I've gone ahead and built a little model kit for us. I've got the CH3, that is straight up axial. Then on the third carbon, I've got this slightly down isopropyl. And notice, you're like, well, it kind of looks like it's really down. Yeah, but if I turn to look at it, see how it's just very slightly down? But from this perspective, it makes it kind of look like it's more pointing down than it really is. All right, in a chair flip, here's what we do. We said sigma bonds can rotate, but in a ring, they're confined. They don't have total free rotation because they're connected to other things. So what we do then is this carbon bends down, then it causes like a little ripple effect. So when this one bends down, this one bends up, this one bends down, carbon number 4 bends up, and then you just kind of alternate all the way around the ring. But the result is after bending, there we go. If I can get that little, there we go. So after bending, what happens is that top right carbon comes now to the bottom right, meaning the headrest became a footrest, and the footrest became a headrest. So visually, the way that we draw this, because you're not going to be doing that. You're not going to be taking a model kit and alternating. We're not doing that. I just wanted to show you one time. The way that we show this on the paper is we take those two lines that we had, and now we go the other way with them. So I'm going to take my two parallel lines and slope the other way with my initial guidelines of the chair. Then, if you remember here, we ended at the bottom left. Well, now we start at the bottom left. So towards the right-hand side, about 2/3 of the way, and then down to the bottom right. From the top right, go about 2/3 of the way towards the middle line on the left, and then up to the top left. So, as for where is carbon number 1, remember the whole point of this is your headrest bends down here, and your footrest goes up here. So some people say, oh, it looks like that means carbon number 1 has moved. I mean, not really. We're just kind of bending it down, but this is now carbon number 1. This is not the same carbon anymore because really this carbon comes down to here and it becomes that carbon. So we're bending and then we're pushing along the rest of the chain. So here's the thing. If you can see that comes down to number 1, again, just keep numbering clockwise around the ring. Don't change up anything in terms of clockwise versus counterclockwise. Okay, so visually, one more time. What happened when we did that chair flip? So you would say that methyl, remember earlier the methyl was up axial. Well, now where is it? It's up still, but it's only slightly up, so it's up equatorial. Okay, what about the isopropyl? It was down equatorial, but now look at it. It's down axial. So in a chair flip, like we said before, or in a chair conversion, all of the axial bonds become equatorial. All of the equatorial bonds become axial. But this is the most important piece on the whole page here. Up stays up, down stays down. So when I draw this, I had up axial methyl at carbon number 1. Well, now it's up equatorial methyl at carbon number 1. At carbon 3, I had down equatorial isopropyl. Now it's down axial isopropyl. So up stays up, down stays down. All that happens is you go from straight up to slightly up. And you go from maybe slightly down to straight down, which my arm can't really bend that way, but you get the idea. So that is the idea of a chair flip. And here's the thing. This chair is constantly going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, just like alkanes were constantly rotating about their axes. So the idea is these two chairs are actually in equilibrium with one another. Right now, we're not going to get into which one is more favorable. We'll do that a little bit later. But the idea is those chairs go back and forth and back and forth. So every line angle drawing exists as two different chair conformations. And that's the tricky part. That's why earlier I've said things like, well, that is not necessarily axial when you see it on a wedge. It depends on where on the chair you're putting it. Because it could be axial, but then it's going to go to equatorial anyway. So it's going back and forth and back and forth. It always exists as two different chairs in equilibrium with one another. All right, well, that's it really for the chair flips. Again, we're going to do some more things with calculating and comparing, but for this one, that's it for now, so we'll see you next time.